Today we're going to do an actual art vlog because I've not done one of those in ages. So I'm going to be talking about art on this art channel. What is that about? So the job that I have been doing in the background of my painting work is coming to an end in a couple of months. And that has always been the case. I've been doing this job for like a year to a year and a half now, and it has always been a temporary position. But as usually happens, like that deadline's come around a lot faster than I thought it might. So it has made me think a little bit about what I'm going to do afterwards, how my art is going to fit into that, and it's made me reflect a little bit on trying to balance art and job. So that is what I'm going to talk about in this video. I'm going to chat about balancing the two. This is more of like a reflection of what my experience has been while I've had this job, and some of the highlights and some of the struggles as well. So let's get into that. When I first started out as an artist, I did not have another job. It wasn't purely by design this. I had finished a job and I didn't have another one lined up yet, and while I was looking for something else, I thought, why not just start my own business as an artist, as you do? And so that is what I did. But I had zero experience of being a self-employed artist, so that could probably tell you how well that went to begin with. It actually wasn't too bad. I did make sales and I was making money rather than losing money, but I was not making enough to sustain like a regular full-time income, which I guess is to be expected when you have no idea what you're doing. It was kind of an unusual experience because in one way I felt like I had found the thing that I was supposed to be doing with my life. I love being an artist. I really enjoyed painting things for people. It was a great time from that perspective. But on the flip side of that, it was also ridiculously stressful because without having another source of income, you are reliant on your painting sales for making any kind of money, and that puts a lot of pressure on your artwork. Everything that you create, you're constantly thinking about what will sell and what people will like, rather than painting the things that you actually want to paint. So when I got my job, the one that I have now, it felt like this pressure was immediately lifted and there was a huge sense of relief. That is definitely a positive of having a job alongside being an artist, because I no longer had to worry about making money from my art and I could concentrate on painting all kinds of different stuff that I wanted to paint without worrying that it might not sell at the end of it. There are obviously pros and cons to having a job alongside trying to pursue an art career, and obviously the income was a very big bonus for me, and overall I feel like it was the right decision for me and it was what I needed to do at the time. However, there are obviously some cons to that as well, and I would say the biggest one by far is time, or the lack of it. When I was thinking about how I would balance work with my art career, I was a little bit naive in thinking that I would have more time available than I actually ended up having. The fact is, you will be balancing more than two things. You're not just balancing having an art career and doing a regular job, but you're also balancing all the other stuff in life as well, like spending time with your friends and family, walking your dog, staying active, running errands, doing chores, going food shopping, having breaks. All of those things you'll still want to fit into your day as well. And that kind of means that painting time gets pushed down the list of priorities, and there's not quite so much time as you thought there would be. Added to this is the fact that you might not always feel like painting. If you've had a really busy day at work, if it has been physically very draining or mentally very tiring, you might not be in the right kind of place to be very creative. When I first started my job, the idea was to build up the art career slowly in the background. Because this was a temporary contract, I thought it would be ideal for that. I'd be able to enjoy the job that I was doing at the time, And then by the time it came to an end, my art career would be in a more sustainable position and I would be in a better place to have a good art balance in my life, either to take it more full time or to have it as a more sustainable part time option. That has obviously not happened, and that, in a large part, has been down to this lack of available time. When I first started, I decided to take a short break from art while I concentrated on getting used to my new job and my new routine, and then the idea was to gradually increase the amount of painting I was doing in the background until it was a more of an even split. The first year, I've got to say, was a bit of a write-off. I did not do a lot of painting in that first year. This year things have improved, but not quite to the extent that I would have liked. And I would say that right now, on average, I'm probably creating about one small painting a week, which seemed like such a massive improvement on last year that I forgot to try and improve on that. I think I just got used to things being the way that they were, and that became normal for me. And I stopped trying to strive for more art in my day to day life. Painting once a week was better than it was before, but it's not what I would like my work art balance to be like going forwards. And so, yeah, I just found myself reevaluating the situation because obviously things need to change. If I want art to be a bigger part of my life, then I'm going to have to find the time to make art a bigger part of my life. You know, it is weird, like how quickly painting became this thing that was just sort of shoehorned into my life whenever I found the opportunity instead of being this big part of my life. Yeah, it's weird how quickly I got used to that and got used to just painting like one day a week and was content with that. Or at least I thought I was content with that. But I am not content with that. I want painting to be a much bigger part of my life, and so I've really got to work on fixing that. But the good thing about noticing that there is a problem with your work painting life balance is that you can then start to do something about it. So that is what I'm going to do. The job coming to an end has definitely spurred me on the art front, It's that big change that's coming that's made me reevaluate what I would like out of an art career, and it's really pushed me to try and do something about it this week. I started to realize that not having as much time for my art was imposing similar restrictions as not having enough money to support my art when this was my only source of income. Whereas that restricted me because I was spending my time creating things that I thought would sell. A lack of time has been restricting me because I've been creating things with a purpose, because I've not wanted to be wasting the limited amount of time that I have had to do paintings. I've been painting things that I could sell or that I could make a video of or that had a specific purpose rather than just painting for the fun of it. And I wanted to change that this week. I have just done the first pass of colour on here, and I'm doing it differently because I wanted to just play around with it and not be so hooked on the detail, and I actually really like this because it's been ages since I did a painting where it's like all coming together at the same time. So I've done the first pass of colour and now I'm going to go over it a couple more times, but I like this approach, and it also feels like it might not take me as much time as well, so that is a bonus. Look at this. This is a thumbprint or a fingerprint here, because this does not stay. I need a better way of attaching this rather than blue tack because it's really warm and it just, look at this. Just look at that. I'm gonna have to press it in again and ruin it. Never mind. Anyway, I'm going to reattach that and then we're going to carry on painting, but I just wanted to, appreciate this stage because I like this. One of the first paintings I did as part of this week was the black and white self-portrait that you saw earlier, and although my face looks absolutely miserable in that painting because it is very difficult to maintain a smile when you are using a mirror to do a self-portrait, I actually was having more fun in that painting than it would initially appear. And that was kind of what I wanted to do to begin with. I realized that my lack of time for painting had resulted in me constantly painting things that had a specific purpose, because I didn't want to waste my limited painting time painting something that I might not be able to do anything with or that might not be successful. It's difficult to prioritize spending time just being creative and making a painting for the sake of it when your time is so limited. But I wanted to change that this week and do something a little bit different. Although the self-portrait was a little bit ridiculous, it was such a turning point for me because I had so much fun while I was painting it. I was painting with looser brush strokes than I've used in ages because obviously I've been focusing on the detail for the miniatures, which I love, but it was really nice just doing something different. And if you're wondering how this relates to finding balance, just spending time painting for fun, time that you are limited on, then I will get to the point now. So for me, finding balance was becoming more difficult because I was losing sight of how much I enjoyed being an artist and how much I enjoyed being creative. I think with limited time, I was restricting myself to one particular painting per week, and it just became routine, and I was just following the same system I always did, and I wasn't really pushing myself or learning new things as an artist. But if you take that time and instead you do something ridiculous like a black and white self-portrait of you looking miserable, or you decide to take a different approach to the painting just to start something new, I feel like that can help spark that creativity that might have been hidden for a little while. I was so inspired after doing the portrait that it spurred me on to do this painting in a slightly different style, and it also inspired a lot of future paintings, some of which you'll see in this video and some of which I have done since then. But I am being more creative than I've been in ages, and I am determined to find time for art now because I can't wait to be painting again. Another thing that is pushing me towards striking a better balance between work and art is remembering why I wanted to do this in the first place and bearing in mind those big goals that I had when I first decided I wanted to go down this route of trying to be an artist. And my big goal essentially is to be an artist, like a successful, either full-time or a more balanced part-time artist where I'm able to make some kind of sustainable income from my art. And somewhere along the way, I feel like I lost sight of that. I think when you end up being so busy with other stuff, then you end up forgetting some of those bigger goals, and your goals get smaller because you are working from day to day, week to week, rather than thinking about the big long term things you are striving for. I was thinking about, can I fit a painting in this week? And that became my goal. And if I achieved that at the end of the week, then I thought that was success. And I just got used to that. I forgot to look beyond the end of the week and think about that big goal of wanting to be more successful. And I stopped striving for it because I kind of lost sight of it. I think having more regular reminders of why you want to do this and why it's so important to you is a really good way of providing you that additional motivation you need when balancing things is getting a little tough. So today's plan is I am going to paint on some copper. This is potentially for an exhibit. So these are the choices. Okay, decision is made. This is the winner. So this exhibition is for the Royal Miniature Society, which is right up my street, obviously. And not even that long ago, I was thinking I wouldn't do this and I would wait until next year because I am a good procrastinator. And I just decided I wasn't gonna do that. But I've changed my mind because of what I've been talking about in this video, and I need to like knuckle down and take this more seriously. So I think trying to enter an exhibit is a good way of trying to take my art a bit more seriously. I'm gonna stop rambling now and I'll actually do some work, but first, no, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna make tea first and then I'm gonna do some work. So the reason for copper is because it's really smooth and that gives you really good detail when you're working on a small scale, because you don't have like that rough texture of canvas that can sometimes get in the way. But the downside of that smooth surface is that when you first apply paint, it's really loose and it doesn't stick to the surface because it's so smooth. So you usually have to wait. I'm saying usually like I do this all the time. I've only painted one copper surface before and I overworked it, so I'm not an expert to ask on this. But what I have found from my one painting experience is that when you first apply the paint, it smooshes around because there's nothing for it to hold on to. So you have to wait for that to tack up a little bit and dry before you can then add your next layers. And I don't like that because I like to work quickly, but I do like the smooth surface for the detail. So it's kind of it's a catch-22. I'm still procrastinating. This was another thing I was doing as part of improving my artwork balance. I wanted to actually enter something or try and take my art to the next level by doing something proactive, like attempting to enter an exhibit. That shows me that I'm taking it more seriously, and it's also spurring me on to make more time for my art because there is a deadline for this exhibit and I need to have some paintings ready by later on in September. I've made some videos in the past about balancing a job and art. I guess that is because it has been on my mind a lot over the past year and a half. And I was wondering why those tips hadn't been so helpful to me this time around, because they had been helpful in the past. And I think that is because my reason for not being able to paint so often has changed a little. Back then, I was very motivated to paint and I was wanting to paint all the time, and I found myself being frustrated that I couldn't find the time. And so those tips were helpful because it helped me fit in a little bit of painting whenever possible, and I was able to strike a better balance. This time around, things have felt a little bit different. I think the reason I haven't been painting quite so often is because the motivation hasn't been the same. I think over time I've just kind of got used to not painting so regularly, and that's become more normal to me. And so it has required slightly different tips to get into a better art job balance situation again. This time around, the solution has been more based around mindset. And so I will summarize because I feel like I've rambled a lot in this video and not made a huge amount of sense. But there's 3 things that I have been doing differently over this past few weeks to try and change my mindset and get a better balance with my art and work. And those are, number 1, paint things for fun, be more creative. Hopefully that will reignite your love for being an artist and will make you want to paint all the time. So you're going to be a bit more proactive about finding that painting time. Number 2, remember why you want to do this in the first place. Find a way of reminding yourself of your big goals regularly so you don't lose sight of what it is you're working towards. And that should provide you with the motivation to push through some of the more difficult times where you don't have as much time for painting. And the third thing is take some proactive steps to try and take your art to the next level. For me, that has been trying to enter this exhibit, but it might mean looking for art shows or fairs that you can participate in, or something you can be working towards where you're treating art as seriously as you really want to take it. I've put in some of the highlights just to see how bright I want this to be, and then that will give me an idea of how dark this needs to be for this highlight to show up. This is way too bright, but it's all right. It's okay. So my video is getting a bit long. I don't think there is enough time to go over many more paintings, so I think we're going to end it there. I'm going to show you the finished pieces that I managed to get done recently so you can see them. All of this extra painting is making a difference and it's inspiring me to paint more stuff. I hope you enjoyed this video. It feels a bit weird. I have tried to stitch together random bits and pieces and hope that it works, and I'm not entirely sure it worked that successfully, but we'll move on. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.